Okay, welcome everyone to our Kipaipai Friday Happy Hour. And tonight, our guest is artist, activist, curator, educator, Sant Khalsa. And I'm super excited to have her here. She's part of our Kipaipai faculty, but on the kind of bigger picture, she's just a super incredible human being. And she knows a lot about a lot of things. And we're super excited to have her tonight. And I think we're getting a specific presentation tonight, but I'll let her talk about that and go ahead and take it away, Sant.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Thanks for inviting me. So I thought a lot about what to talk about and actually put together probably several presentations, spent too much time working on this. And then decided that a lot of you probably don't know my work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give an artist talk that is more integrated with my other practices. It's all one art practice, one art life, which is, and I'm going to talk about that. And so you're going to get little bits and pieces of lots of different things. So I'm actually going to be reading my talk and I'm going to be sharing my screen. And so I'm going to share my screen now, get started with that. Let's see if I just see. Let's make sure that it's working. Okay, are you seeing it? Yes, okay, great. And you're
Yes.
hearing me. Okay,
Yeah, perfect.
great. Well, I'm just going to get started then. So good evening, everyone. I am joining you from my home in Joshua Tree, grateful to live on the ancestral land of the Serrano, Chemehuevi, and Cahuilla people. Tonight, I will share a 30-minute introduction to my ideas in ever-evolving meaningful art practice. I look forward to your questions at the end of my presentation. We can have a discussion and you can ask me questions about anything. I begin with what I regard as my most significant life achievements. My son in the center with me when he was 2.5. My students, a picture on the left, is the last group of students I worked with before I retired. It was actually the last day of class, last critique. And the forest that I planted on the right side. These are all seeds planted, growing, and thriving. My art and career accomplishments, such as exhibitions, grants, awards, residencies, fellowships, publications, museum acquisitions, et cetera, are the artifacts of a passionate, mindful, and persistent engagement in my art life. I am an ecofeminist whose life is centered on environmental issues with a focus on forests and trees for 4 decades. My art life is a balance of art making, teaching, curating, writing, mentoring, community building, and activism. I view art as a powerful tool for raising human consciousness. I agree with the artist Joseph Beuys, who said, quote, "I think art is the only political power, the only revolutionary power, the only evolutionary power, the only power to free humankind from all repressions," end quote. My artworks are intended to create a contemplative space where one can sense the subtle and profound connections between themselves, the natural world, and our constructed landscapes. Evident in my work is the power and resilience of nature to thrive and survive despite our human acts and inactions. Photographing is an integral part of my art and meditation practice. Being still, alert, and present in a moment of mindful observation. It is a means of investigating, interpreting, and expressing my experiences, vision, and ideas about the place we call home. In addition to photographs, I create installation and sculptural works with the goal of engaging my audience as an active participant rather than a passive observer in the art experience. Trees appear within much of my photographic work over the decades as the central subject, critical companion to water in my extensive project on the Santa Ana River and watershed, or the foundation of a natural or human altered environment. In his best-selling book, The Hidden Life of Trees, Peter Wallenben argues that to save the world's forests, we must first recognize that trees are wonderful beings with innate adaptability, intelligence, and the capacity to communicate with and heal other trees. I would add that we need to acknowledge our dependency on trees, providing us with oxygen, the life force of the breath. Also, trees' extraordinary ability to store carbon, hold water, stabilize the soil, and give life to the world's wildlife. My extensive photo project on the Santa Ana River titled Paving Paradise was informed by personal experiences living most of my life in the watershed, working for 9 years alongside the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers while photographing the building of the Seven Oaks Dam on the river, and in my work with the Water Resources Institute at California State University, San Bernardino, where I taught art for 3 decades. The Research Institute was founded by myself and colleagues in the natural health and information sciences to research and tackle critical and complex water issues in the inland region of Southern California. Additionally, I was a member of the Water in the West Project, a large-scale photographic collaboration addressing water issues in the Western United States. Through the 1990s, I worked with an extraordinary group of 11 photographers, including Mark Kleck, Terry Evans, Robert Dawson, and Lori Brown, and curator Ellen Manchester, as well as a number of water experts, investigating a wide range of topics related to the use and abuse of water in the American West. We felt that bringing our individual perspectives, approaches, and regional projects together formed a more in-depth and powerful message. Project exhibitions and publications were educational, thematic, and issue-centered, as well as art-focused. This unique approach and experience expanded my understanding of water and land issues and my visual vocabulary. The Water in the West photo collection and archive, which includes more than 50 of my Paving Paradise photographs, is held at the Center for Creative Photography in Tucson. My photographs have been acquired by other museum collections, including LACMA, the Nevada Museum of Art in Reno, the UCR California Museum of Photography, the Museum of Photographic Arts in San Diego, and others. I photographed the Santa Ana River for 3 decades and refer to her as my river, not to allude to ownership or control, but rather with respect to the close relationship one develops over time, as with a dear friend. The river water runs through me and serves as a source of vital sustenance for my body, mind, and creative spirit. This personal realization and intimate connection with nature is the foundation of my art and activism. I also create artworks to inform and inspire my audience to reconsider their wasteful and destructive behaviors and bring awareness to our interdependence with the natural world. Another such photo project is Western Waters. The idea for Western Waters developed while I was web browsing the word watershed. I found a business named Watershed located in Palmdale, California. Of course, I was curious, so I got in my car and drove to the Western Mojave Desert to see what this business was. There I found a retail water store and a strip mall selling reverse osmosis purified water from tap to bottle. This was in the year 2000. I was drawn to the subject because of the apparent necessity yet absurdity of these stores and the way these venues seek to present the source of a natural experience. Of course, these stores are merely an entrepreneurial enterprise, a constructed site to provide the consumer with the most essential requirement for life and survival. Plastic bottles have replaced earthen vessels, and polluting automobiles carry us to and from this fabricated representation of a river, well, or spring to fetch our water. I use the internet to locate stores in Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Southern Nevada. I was especially intrigued by the store names and how they referred to natural water sites, water quality, and spiritual aspects related to water, as seen here with heavenly water. I decided to use a photographic strategy atypical to my personal photographic style to present the subject content in a more objective way, excuse me. To create Western Waters, I went on pilgrimages to more than 200 water stores, numerous road trips across 4 states over a period of several years. Ironically, this was similar to the experiences I had wandering in India in the early 80s, seeking holy and healing water sites, but often just finding a spigot and a sign marking the site. Western Waters establishes a framework for understanding how we view the natural world, especially water, as commodity. The success of these stores is based on consumer fear that their tap water is not safe to drink and providing a less expensive alternative to bottled water. Water stores are generally located in low income neighborhoods, areas with large immigrant populations, retirement communities, or in regions where tap water has a very high mineral content. The 60 frame gelatin silver prints are installed in a pattern which refers to geography and mapping, where the stores are situated in the 4 states in relation to each other and my road trip experience. The Western Water photographs will serve in the future as a historical document of either a fleeting fad or the foundation of what will become commonplace in our society. My photographic projects, including Paving Paradise and Western Waters, have been supported with grants and fellowships, widely exhibited in galleries and museums, and published in periodicals and books, from LA to New York, from Europe to New Zealand. Moving to the Mojave Desert, the Southern California drought and climate change inspired the work Pray for Rain, seen here. I reinterpreted early ideas from my distress signals work to create a glass kinetic sculpture inspired by the concept, design, and technology of the Tibetan prayer wheel. The glass work was produced during my invited artist residency at Pilchuck Glass in Washington State. Pray for Rain is intended to emote a message of emergency, a focused plea for water. It is constructed from a 17-inch high clear blown glass cylinder that is half full or half empty with water and embossed with the Morse code, which you can see across here, Morse code, symbols for the word water. Messages are floating in these bottles, each containing a word associated with water, such as snow, ice, drop, cloud, and flow. The clear prayer wheel is capped with a blue blown glass sphere, which represents our planet, which is mostly water. The projection and reflection on the wall, seen in this area, creates a pattern similar to the waves seen on a body of water, such as the ocean. The prayer wheel, which you're not seeing right now because this is a still image, appears to be mysteriously turning. It's constantly turning. And I'm not going to show the video only because I don't want to get cut off. This is done by setting the glass piece upon a motorized pedestal, which continuously turns clockwise. Buddhists believe that each rotation of the prayer wheel is equal to the recitation of the prayers held within. Now for some more about trees. My creative research on trees and forests and air quality began in 1992 when I was invited to produce new work for the exhibition Smog, A Matter of Life and Breath, curated by Kim Ableys at the California Museum of Photography in Riverside. Southern California has long suffered from the worst air quality in the US due to a large population and car culture, as well as sunny, stagnant weather and a bowl-like topography. Each artist in the smog show was paired with a research scientist at the University of California, Riverside Air Pollution Research Center. At a meeting with my collaborator, Dr. Paul Miller, I asked, what was the best thing I could do as an individual to positively impact air quality? He said, plant trees. Over many weekends during the spring season, I planted over 1,000 ponderosa pine seedlings as a volunteer with the National Forest Service to reforest Holcomb Valley near Big Bear Lake. The area had been decimated during the 1860s California gold rush by mining, clear cutting, and cattle grazing. The reforestation project was intended to restore vital ecosystems in the Santa Ana watershed and improve air and water quality in the inland region of Southern California. My planting experiences were physically labor intensive, yet emotionally profound and cognitively transformative, inspiring the creation of numerous works, including the site-specific installation, The Sacred Breath, seen here. I should mention, actually, this is not the original Sacred Breath, but the one that was done at MOA Lancaster, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little while. The Sacred Breath is a meditation environment which focuses on the interdependence between human beings and trees and provides the participant with an experience of the breath as a life-giving gift of trees and forests. The lung-shaped photographic altarpiece connects our bodies with forests, the lungs of the earth. Positive affirmations for trees are contained in the constantly turning suspended prayer wheels. A handmade prayer book of tree photographs with the words inhale and exhale guide us through a breath meditation. For the show, I also produced the photo wall installation titled SOS, We Are Killing Trees, Therefore We Are Killing Ourselves, which presents photographs of the most smog damaged trees in the US at that time. The images are printed on square and rectangular panels to create a visual statement, which is the International Morse Code signal, SOS. Many of my subsequent photographs and sculptural works evolved from my life-changing experience planting a forest. This large sculptural work titled Stand is a specimen-like replication of a fire-destroyed stand of trees that was featured in the exhibition titled Plan Photography Los Angeles Now at LACMA in the 90s. Trees and seedlings are akin to Stand in my use of materials and high contrast film images of fire-destroyed trees. The work addresses both the fragility and resilience of nature, representing the cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth, the memory of a forest, and the promise of new growth. These pieces vary in height and are installed leaning against the wall like planks of wood, are stored and displayed for purchase in a lumber yard. Shadow images are cast onto the wall to bring attention to the ethereal aspect of life. For my recent photo project titled Growing Air, I returned to the site of my tree plantings for the first time 25 years later to find an extraordinary, beautiful, and healthy forest of ponderosa pine trees inhabited by many species of wildlife. My interest is with what is seen and unseen in the forest, historical, scientific, and spiritual, personal, and global. My photographs are my response to this unique place. I especially delight in walking through and visiting the pine trees during the spring when the forest is in full bloom. I experience a deep and profound connection with the land and recognize the power and sacredness of the trees. I walk through the young forest, attuned to the life force that surrounds me and the growing mycelium networks beneath my feet. I know that the trees are aware of my presence and I express gratitude for all they give us. These trees, like the millions of others that are being planted worldwide, are required to restore the breath of life to our dying planet. In spring 2018, I had a large solo exhibition titled Prana, Life with Trees at MOA Lancaster. A book of the same title was released in 2019, published by Griffith Moon and MOA, thanks to Andy and Kimberly. The exhibition and book brought together photographs, installations, and sculptural works focused specifically on trees and forests that I've made over 4 decades. Here are some installation views of the exhibition. Note the intimate scale of my work. I do that because I really want people to take a close look at the environment, and also because in the big world view, a landscape that physically seems incredibly large to us is actually quite small. So I'll just show you some more of these. And you can see the Sacred Breath installation. And you can see some of the trees and seedlings. And this is another prayer wheel, which I will talk about. My forest series titled Rebirth was shown for the first time in the Prana exhibition and was featured on the cover of the book. And I don't have that image right here. The photographs were made during a visit to a coastal rainforest in North Vancouver, British Columbia. The images depict new growth on old growth nurse stumps that were either cut for lumber or naturally fell. The nurse stumps provide structure and nourishment for the young trees, sharing nutrients, oxygen, and water to support new life. The forest is teeming with energy and oxygen, giving me a sense of hope and calm as I breathe in the power of nature and the gift of life. Here's the image from the cover of the book. The second in my series of kinetic prayer wheels titled Growing Air was also featured in the exhibition. The glass prayer wheel is etched with the word air in Morse code and holds a young, drought-resistant Mexican bird of paradise tree. The tree is now planted and thriving on my land in Joshua Tree. I am grateful to have continued interest in my work with museum exhibition opportunities. An installation of new trees and seedlings, along with a growing air forest photograph and video, are in the exhibition Seascapes, Future-Proofing Nature, which is on tour to 3 museums in the UK right now. Golden Hour California photography from the Los Angeles County Museum of Art is currently at MOA Lancaster and traveling to 3 other Southern California venues. And my Sacred Breath meditation installation will be shown in March through the summer in the exhibition Breathtaking at the New Mexico Museum of Art in Santa Fe. My art life practice has evolved over the years from a solitary one to a collaborative, integrative practice of art making, writing, lecturing, and teaching, community organizing and building, curating, and activism. I realized that I am but one voice, and that by bringing together artists, scientists, writers, and activists to share their varied creative perspectives and research-based findings has a greater and more substantial impact. Since July, I have been hosting a monthly online program called Tree Talk, Artists Speak for Trees, co-sponsored by Eco Art Space and the Joshua Tree Center for Photographic Arts, which I founded in October 2019. Each month, I invite artists working in a range of media to share their artworks and ideas about these most essential and extraordinary living beings. Additionally, guest scientists are invited to present their research, which contributes greatly to the dialogue. I select 3 Kipaipai artists, fellows who have spoken on Tree Talk. Though retired for 3 years now from Cal State San Bernardino, where I taught for over 30 years. I continue to teach workshops, lecture, and lead critiques through Joshua Tree Center for Photographic Arts, and on invitation from universities, nonprofits, and exhibition venues. Curating and writing have been a significant part of my practice since the 80s. Researching exhibition themes and working with emerging and established artists that I respect is inspiring and broadens my perspective on a number of topics and critical issues. I have realized that bringing together varied creative voices and visions on a subject enhances the audience experience and engagement. Writing has helped me to bring clarity and articulate my ideas about art, nature, built environments, philosophy, science, and much more. Some of my curatorial projects have included Desert Waters, a Desert X parallel project for the Marx Art Center in Palm Desert, Being Here and There for Moa Lancaster, Transition Zone for the Chaffey Community Museum of Art in Ontario, and at least a half dozen exhibitions at RAFMA, the art museum on the campus of Cal State San Bernardino, which included Louis de Soto's Empire and Mirror of the Invisible, contemporary artists reflecting on Rumi and Islamic mysticism, which I co-curated with Eva Kirsch. Most of these exhibitions have included a published catalog with a curatorial essay. I am in the research phase of curating an exhibition with printed catalog about the unique and iconic Joshua Tree, which will be shown in 2024 at Moa Lancaster. The Joshua Tree's survival is threatened by climate change and growing sprawl in its only habitat, the Mojave Desert. The curatorial project brings together current research by scientists and diverse works by artists and writers that spotlight the endangered Joshua Tree and the vital and sensitive ecosystems that support them. I also work with nature conservation nonprofits in my region by donating my photography, writing op-ed pieces for publications, and meeting with elected officials on critical environmental issues facing Southern California, and especially the California desert. In addition to continuing to make photo-based works of young trees and ancient forests, I'm contributing my time, energy, and money to both local and worldwide tree planting efforts. I'm creating artworks and planting native trees with the hopes of inspiring positive, constructive, and peaceful action aimed at sustaining the breath of life to our planet and slowing or hopefully stopping climate collapse. I wish to end my talk by encouraging each of you to plant trees at home or volunteer to plant an urban or woodland forest, or contribute to the nonprofits who are working to reforest our planet with 1 billion trees. We know that tree planting is critically important to heal the ecosystems that sustain life on our planet. We and many generations that follow will be grateful for your conscious act of beauty, kindness, love, and compassion. I think I just got cut off. Thank you for this opportunity to share my art life and ideas with you today. I'm happy to take questions and engage in conversation.
So good, Sant. Does anybody have any
I think
questions?
that was just about 25 minutes.
It was perfect. It's perfect. Does anyone have any questions? Do you want to
I
stop?
do. I have a question.
Okay.
I'm happy to talk about the work, career stuff. Like, you can ask me details about career. I love sharing about any part of, professional practice too. So
Son, I'm just anxious to know of the trees that, can you hear me? Okay. Okay.
I'm not hearing you. I'm sorry. I think I just froze.
Yeah, she's frozen.
Yeah, you are. You're frozen.
Oh yeah, she's frozen.
Yeah,
Oh,
I,
dear.
I can hear you.
Okay, so here's the question that I would like to ask Son is of the 1,000 ponderosa pines that she planted
Why are
in
you watching this?
You know, they
Holcomb Valley.
at one point it was 22 to 2.
Karen, can you,
They've come back. So. Sorry.
thanks.
Okay. Of the,
Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry. I totally froze. I'm back.
okay. Are you there? You can hear?
I live in a very rural place, very desolate. Yes,
Well,
I
I
can hear
do
you.
too, so that may be complicating matters. But can you hear me right now, San?
Yes, I can hear you,
Okay.
Catherine.
I'm curious to know, of all those ponderosa pines that you planted,
Mhm.
after they were put into the ground, did you have to go back and irrigate them, or did you just let it
No,
nature take over?
there's actually a story about that, and I have a video of a conversation I was having with the botanist I was working with, and it was one day I was up there. Can you hear me? Just want to make
I can
sure.
hear you. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I was up there one weekend with 4 of my students, and they each planted 100 trees that day. And when we were done, I said, said to her, I'm sorry, I'm not remembering the botanist's name right now. I said, so now what, I need to let the students know their responsibility. What do we need to do to care for these trees? And she said, absolutely nothing. Nature will take care of them. They will be fine. Come back and visit them. And I never went back to see them for 25 years. And then when I went back, I saw 30, 40 foot high ponderosa pines and just wheat. I mean, I just
Yeah.
I was just overwhelmed.
Amazing. Amazing. Wonderful gift.
It's a gift for me. I mean, it was a gift for me. It transformed my life.
I believe it.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Deb.
I want to know about your transition from photography, two-dimensional behind the camera, to hands-on three-dimensional glass. How was
Okay.
that shift for you?
Okay, so I am a traditionally trained artist. I've been studying art since I was 11, and I grew up in New York City, and I actually went every Saturday to a painter's studio in Greenwich Village and had painting and drawing lessons as a child. And then I went to the High School of Music and Art. And then I went to the Maryland Institute College of Art, and then eventually to Arizona State University and Cal State San Bernardino. Cal State Fullerton. Those two schools for my two graduate degrees. And I started as a painter, and I've been trained in I worked in every medium. I've worked in sculpture, painting, I've worked in ceramics, glass, fibers, printmaking, photography, video, film, and so my primary in college, I started college as a painting major and really got into painting and ceramics, and then eventually got into photography and video. And it was the early part of video. I was in college in 1970. It was the beginning of the guerrilla television movement, which I was very involved with. And if anybody knows anything about the history of guerrilla television and art video, there was a publication called Radical Software, and it's actually online. Anyway, there's a picture of me on the cover of Radical Software when I'm like, I don't know, 18 years old, 19 years old, or something like that. So I got into video and photography, and it became my passion. I've always been extremely political, and I got and video was being used at that time for art and as an alternative means to produce political action and, inform communities about what was happening. And so that's kind of how I got into it. I just realized that photography was this incredibly powerful tool because people believed it. And photography is actually extremely fictional and easy to manipulate, and it's easy to basically affect people's opinion and perspective through it. So I got into photography, but all those other mediums that I worked with are in my toolbox. And so working sculpturally, it's not actually not unusual for me. I've drawn. I don't show people my drawings, but I've been drawing since, I was a child, and I continue to draw. But it's just not what I show because it's not, I feel like there's a lot of people who just do that so much better.
Nancy,
Does that
Nancy
make
Turner
sense?
yes.
you.
Nancy Turner would like to know if you fabricate all the work yourself.
Most of it.
Wow.
So the piece stand that was in the plan show at LACMA was actually a collaboration with Charles Moorhead, who is a designer architect that I worked with for about 3 or 4 years. The current series of trees and ceilings, that sculpture work is all done by me. But the piece that's in the UK that's traveling was actually done in collaboration with a wood artist in the UK because we could not ship the wood pieces over because of pests and concern. So I collaborated with an artist in the UK. All my photographic work, I do all my own printing. I do all my own gelatin silver printing in the darkroom. I do all my own digital printing in my studio. Yeah, I do most of it. And yeah.
Beautiful craftsmanship,
I have a question.
always.
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
How long have you lived in Joshua Tree, and how has the place changed if you've lived there for a long time?
No, I haven't lived, actually, I've lived in Southern California since 1975, and I've lived in different places in Southern California. I've lived in Los Angeles, Claremont, Lake Arrowhead, and San Bernardino. We bought our home in Joshua Tree about 10 years ago, and I've only lived here full time for 3 years.
Oh, I see.
But I've been coming to Joshua Tree. The first time I came to Joshua Tree was in 1973, when I came to California on a road trip. And then when I moved here in 75 to Southern California, I started going to Joshua Tree probably once or twice a year. At the time it was the National Monument, not the National Park. And I've always loved this place. And when I was getting ready to retire from teaching, my husband and I, David, we talked about it, and we thought, where are we going to live? We don't want to stay in San Bernardino, and Joshua Tree was the first place we wanted to go to. There's an incredible arts community out here. It's perfect for us because I'm a visual artist and my husband is a composer, and there's a big music scene out here. There's a lot of composers and musicians out here, a lot of writers, designers, and it's not as expensive to live as other places in Southern California. You can have lots of space, indoor and outdoor space. We both have 2 fairly large, beautiful studios. And I don't think we can afford that elsewhere. Maybe in the Midwest, but we don't want to live in the Midwest. So sorry if there's anyone here from the Midwest. And I mean, I'm a New Yorker and a Californian. I mean, those are like the two places that I relate to. So
Very good.
it's a wonderful community here. I miss seeing everyone. I mean, we don't see anybody, just like all of us. We're not out in the world. So
Son, can you tell us which organization in the UK is showing the work right now?
yes, I'm gonna have to look. I'm gonna have to get some information. I'm an older person and I'm not good with names and I forget things. So I'm going to find that for you right now.
Okay.
So I should say the show started at Impressions Gallery, which is one of the, I think maybe the oldest photo nonprofit gallery in the UK. So it's a gallery and museum, but they still call themselves gallery. They have a collection, and that's where it started. And the next place, which it's supposed to be opening right now, and let me get that information. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Give me 1 second. Okay. Someone ask me another question while I'm looking for that, please.
Well, you say you're an old.
I have a simple
look like-
question.
I know, it just don't
we-
I feel like I have so much in my head right now. Okay, so where is it going next? I'm still looking. Okay, someone has a question.
I do.
Stevie.
Just,
Yes.
that list of organizations that plant trees that we could donate to. I'd like to
Yes.
have that list because we don't have any water here and I can't plant trees around my house because we have no water. We have very little water. But I would love to donate to people who are planting.
I will send it to you. So I'll send it to you, Stevie. So the next museum
Okay,
it's
thanks.
opening at, it's supposed to open as soon as they allow it to open it. It's going to be at the Royal Albert Memorial Museum and Art Gallery in Exeter is where it's going next. And then I'd have to look up where it's going. Oh, and then it's going to Scotland. It's a show, it's going to the Dick Institute in Scotland. And it's a show that was curated by Liz Wells, who is a very well-respected photo curator and professor of photo history in England. She's curated numbers of environmental-based shows and written a number of books. And she's actually doing a book right now as well on seedscapes. And the show itself, only has 5 artists in the show, and it's quite a large show. So everybody has quite a bit of work in the show. Is that good, Andy? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Did everybody freeze again? Oh, okay, there.
No,
Okay.
you're doing great. Does anyone have
Okay.
any other questions?
Sant, is there any chance that show would be traveling at all in any venues in the United States?
We discussed that actually at a meeting recently, and the only way that the show could travel outside of the UK would be to get a lot of money to do it. First of all, so exhibitions moving from country to country or continent to continent is really difficult. Not just during a pandemic, in general. And, you know, there's all these laws about even just shipping things with wood frames now from continent to continent or country to country. So things have to get shipped out of their frames, and they have to be able to pay to reframe them in that place. It's really expensive. So we talked about it, and it's, unless we could find a really big donor, it would be very difficult to bring the show over to the United States.
Are all of the artists American in the show?
No, there's 2 American artists, 2 British artists, and 1 French artist.
What's the issue with the wood frames?
Just they don't want any bugs, pests to, yeah.
And
I'm sure Andy's dealt with this before.
we even had an artist, a photography artist, 2 years ago, that made all of his own frames. They were all fabricated and they were gorgeous. And during the exhibition, we noticed little piles of sawdust on the floor, and we thought, what the heck? And then we looked into it, and the wood that he purchased, which was a very expensive fine wood, was infested. And so when he created the frames, he didn't see that until we installed it. And then all of a sudden we started seeing all these little, so immediately the gallery has to be sealed off, because, you know, we have a collection at the museum as well. So it's not just the other works that are around the museum on exhibit, but the works that are in our collection. So there was this and you can't fumigate. So there's this whole, you know, procedure that you have to go through in both the preservation of the photographs themselves, and then also how to remove that and remove the infected wood out of the building. Really was a pain in the ass. And I have recommendations for all of you as artists. If you are invited to show in Europe, if you want to send your work in framed, use aluminum. Do not frame your work with wood. You also will have to send those in crates that cannot be made out of a certain wood. And the customs for most European countries, I don't know how Asia is, but for Europe, it has to be made out of a specific wood, and it has to be certified. So you can't build a crate yourself or have someone fabricate a crate yourself. It has to be built and fabricated by a certified crate builder who has the certified stamp and seal of specific wood that can go to Europe. And it is very expensive.
Who knew? Who knew?
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I've had shows. I've had shows in numerous countries, and depending on the budget, it's been done differently. Like, for instance, I was in a show in China, and what they did is they just had me send the digital files, and they printed everything in China and framed everything in China. But I've had shows in Australia, New Zealand, Norway. I mean, I could just, numerous countries where the prints were sent, and then they framed them there, where I shipped the frame, I just shipped shipped the prints, and they framed them. So, yeah.
Wow. Good to know.
Any other questions?
Oh,
go ahead.
Because I'm freezing a lot.
No, you're fine.
I just want you all to know that I just put a link up. Oh, okay. I just put a link up for the Seedscape exhibition when it was in the Impressions Gallery. They did a really beautiful virtual exhibition experience. And so I just put the link up if you want to go to it and see the show.
So Sant is currently in the Golden Hour exhibition at MOA, which is our first partnership with LACMA. And because she's in LACMA's permanent collection, and not just the piece that's in the exhibition, she's got dozens of works in their permanent collection, but we're in this Golden Hour exhibit, we only have one, but it happens to be a piece that hasn't been exhibited before. So we're excited because it's like the first time for people to see it. But you can go on, you'll be able to go on to the museum's website starting Monday and being able to do a virtual tour of that Golden Hour exhibition. You'll be able to see Sant's work in that. Also, I believe there are a number of other Southern California photographers in the exhibit. The theme is about California itself as seen through the photographic lens. So there are artists from all over the world that participated, but there are many Southern California photographers, including Sant, and it's a really great exhibit. I really, if you can't come in person, eventually we will be open to the public, probably closer to the closing. LACMA did produce a beautiful book. They call it a pamphlet, which I cracked up when we got the boxes of the first 500. It takes up a whole hallway, and I was like, what are all these boxes? I don't think I have. Oh yeah, here, I have a copy of it right here.
I didn't know they did
Did
that.
produce this book. It's
Oh,
a perfect bound. It's beautiful, and it also, if you flip it over, is in Spanish. So the first part of, and it's a really beautiful look at the works in this exhibition, and lots of writing and talking about kind of representing California. And then if you flip it over, you can go through the whole thing in Spanish. But it's lovely. And if you want, and you write to us, we can probably send you one. If you aren't going to get to the museum in person, but they are free and they're lovely publication.
who did the writing?
I believe Eve.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Actually, I haven't even looked through it
I'm sure they'll send me a copy.
Well, that's funny because I asked the other day, have all the artists that are in this show received a copy? And they said, oh, we didn't even think about doing that. So
Okay.
it'll probably be, it'll probably be a collaboration between MOA staff and LACMA staff on getting all the artists some copies of those.
Right. Well, I like to talk about sort of like, my talk wasn't about the nuts and bolts of being in the art world. I have a whole other talk on that. But, like, I don't know how many of you have your works at this point in museum collections, but when your work goes into museum collections, you don't know what happens to the work after it goes into the museum collection. Like, you don't find out typically when your work is actually being shown. If they've lent your work to another institution, or the work is actually being shown in their museum, you hardly know about it. So you could have work in a museum and it could be shown in numerous exhibitions and you wouldn't even know about them. So what I do about once a year is I Google, sounds crazy, but I Google my name with the names of all the museums that I'm in collections to see if the work has gone anywhere and been on loan, and I can find exhibitions. That's how I find out sometimes that the work is being shown.
And that's a good practice, I think, that all artists should be doing anyway, is Googling their name to find out what's going on and what press that they have. I can't tell you how many times I've spoken to artists and said, oh, I'm so excited. I heard that your piece is, going to be in this exhibition. And they said, oh, I didn't even know that. And I'm like, don't you, or you got written up at this magazine, and they have no clue. So I think it's a good practice for all artists to, Google yourself once a month and see what's out there. And that's also a good way to control your narrative as well. If there are things out there that you don't want out there about your work or you as a person, you have a way of making sure what makes it to the top of that search. It's the search engine. So I think it's a good practice to get into.
Yeah. Jean said, we'd love to know about your experiences with museums. One thing I'd like to share with you about museums is that those relationships with museum curators are long-term building relationships. if you have the opportunity to have a studio visit with a museum or a museum curator, or if you have a museum curator come to one of your talks or your shows, like for instance, when I had the MOA, my show at MOA with Andy, I had curators from a lot of major museums come to the talk. I mean, the Getty came, LACMA came, a bunch of others came. And the thing is that those are relationships that you build over time. And, I just keep those, even though my work may not be in all of the collection, all the major museums in LA, I know that I have relationships with just about all those curators, and I stay in touch with them. And I know that in time, I may not even be here when it happens, the work will be in those collections. But it's not something you should expect to happen right away. It takes a long time to grow those relationships. The relationship with LACMA took probably about, I would say about 10 years before they began purchasing work, and they purchased 20 pieces. It takes time.
And you and I have known each other 30 years.
Yes, we have. Yes.
And we didn't work together immediately when we first met. Also,
No.
I was kind of green. Sant has been a major mentor for me, and this last 10 years has been very fruitful, and we've been able to collaborate on a lot of projects together, both at the museum and at my gallery and other places. So you never know what's going to happen, right? If you maintain those relationships, and especially if you like the person. I mean, obviously I have a huge lady crush on Sant, so we happen to like each other, so that's always nice. But when you're, all of you here that I know that are Kipaipai fellows, you're all good human beings, and there's from a curator's perspective, that's really important. Obviously, the relevance of the work and the craftsmanship of the work is really important, but being a good human being is what creates great relationships. And the opportunities will come if you can build on those relationships. The folks that are not nice people and the divas who don't play well with others, we're not even getting involved with those folks anymore. There's not a reason to, because life is too short, and there are plenty of artists out in the world, and obviously we're going to choose those folks that we can have a meaningful relationship with, over the artist creating something similar that is just a dick, or you just and you can't work with them. So I mean, to be blunt, and you all expect that out of me anyway, but yeah, Sant, I think we should have you come back and do a presentation on like the relationships and like the process. I know you talked to Kipaipai artists during the workshop specifically about those things, that how it's relevant to them specifically. But I think it would be worth it to, I think, have a presentation on like, what does that relationship between you and a museum curator look like, and how to start that conversation.
Well, yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that. I mean, one of the things that that comes to mind immediately is, I know that being a curator, because I do a lot of curating and independent curating, being a curator as an artist is very different than those people who are full-time curators. And because I take a perspective as a curator, which is that I'm an artist, I'm engaged in a certain practice. I'm interested in artists that are working in areas that are similar to mine, And so it's a very, I know that being an artist curator is different than being, let's say, an art historian curator. It's totally different. But the one thing is that because of my curating experience, I have such a respect for curators and what they do, and I understand what they do. And I think that that helps my relationship with them, because I know what the stress that they're under. I know the fact that they have to deal with artists, which is really hell to do. I mean, seriously. I mean, and I agree with what Andy just said. You know, once I work with an artist who is difficult to work with, I am never working with them again. It's not going to happen. Because it's like life is too short. I don't want to have to deal with it. And I, you know, I'm the first person when someone contacts me and they say, you know, I mean, I check my email constantly. I respond to opportunities immediately, and I follow through, and I make sure that they get what they want and more. And, you know, and that really helps my career. I mean, just in the last, I mean, I've been interviewed for like several books and magazines in the last couple of weeks. And, you know, they ask me for something and then I send them all of this. And then they're like, oh my God, you're like, I love you. Look at all the stuff you sent me. This is going to make my life so easy, you know, and the thing is, then they tell other writers, oh, this person is really easy to work with. They always follow through, you know, it makes such a difference. So that's really important. And anyway, yeah.
On that note, I want to just pop in here and mention this. Magazines and newspapers they're just down to their like bare bones writers. And if you can craft your press release in a way that can be cut and pasted into an article, that is the best way that is the quickest way to getting something written about your work or about you. If you can craft that press release in the form of a story, it will be used. You will get press. The more you can make it easy for the A, writer, and B, the editor, the more likely that you will be given some kind of press, whether it's in a print magazine or online. So think about that when you're preparing for shows. Sant's an amazing writer, and all of her work goes out. Everything goes out with the writing that is relevant to what she's doing. And in that case, it's basically written for the organization. Now, all they have to do is have a conversation with her, asking her specific details about things. But for the most part, it is written. So think about that as all of you artists are preparing to either put a proposal together, or you're putting a press release together for an exhibition, or you have a new body of work that you want to get out in the world. Like, that story is really, really important. And when you do the work for the writer or the editor, it's definitely more likely that you're going to get coverage.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to give a shout out to a few people, Andy, that are in this audience. The first person is Betty Brown. So
thank you, Sant.
One of the pieces that I showed, which was the Sacred Spring, which was an early slide of spigots. I didn't really talk about the piece, but it had white spigots, a white wall with text. Yeah. That's from a show that Betty Brown curated and invited me to be in to do a new piece. And the piece was for the exhibition Muses at the Armory Center for the Arts around the mid-90s or so. And anyway, and I've worked with Betty other times. And the thing about Betty is that she will challenge you as an artist to be the best artist you can possibly be. Plus, she's a brilliant writer and thinker and knows so much about art history.
Okay, so that's
women art
wonderful.
history. Huh?
Stop. Hey, I have to jump in here. I almost said it earlier. When you mentioned art history curators,
Yes.
that I only have one tenet to my curatorial philosophy. You know what it is? No assholes.
Exactly.
I'm serious.
I agree.
There are so many wonderful artists out there who are decent human beings, that people who think that they have a right to behave badly because they're an artist are so boring and uninteresting, and I don't ever want to work with them. So that's my curatorial philosophy.
Lori Sumie just said, can you tell just by looking at the art?
No,
No,
you cannot.
You can't. No.
Oh, that's a great question. I love that. No, you cannot. You still have to make good work. It doesn't mean that you can make crappy work and just be a nice person. You still have to make good work, right?
Correct, but there is a lot of good work out there.
There's a lot of good work, yeah.
There's a lot of good work. Anyway, thank you so much, Sant.
And also Betty wrote this beautiful essay for Prana Life with Trees for the book. So, read it. It's just
Thank you.
So wonderful. And now I want to give a shout out to Nada Osland, who's here. And I have known Nada since the early 80s. We go way back. I was in graduate school. She was in undergraduate school. We were in photo critiques together. We go way back. And she's an incredible artist. So I just want to give a shout out to her. And then I want to give out a shout out to Stevie Love. Yay, Stevie. Who is my student. And where is she? Did I lose her? As soon as I said that, she left.
Oh yeah, I think she got kicked off. She has crappy coverage.
So anyways, Stevie was a student of mine at Cal State San Bernardino. She was a photo student of mine, though she's a painter. And she's just, I said in the beginning of my talk that for me, the achievements in my life are my son, my students, and the forest, right? Because that's where you plant the seeds, right? That's where things happen. Anyway, Stevie's awesome. So I just had to do that.
I'm glad you did. All right. Oh, I wanted, and speaking of Nada, her work is currently also at MOA as part of the Golden Hour exhibition, because her work is in the MOA permanent collection. So if you come to see the exhibition, you'll see her work as well.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Sant.
You're awesome, lady.
Thank you.
So I want to thank everybody tonight for coming by and checking us out and checking out Sant's presentation. And we're going to have her back again. Maybe we'll discuss something a little bit more about kind of the professional process. If you are a Kipaipai Fellow, you already have access to Sant and Betty. So you should be utilizing those relationships because they are there, especially if you've been invited to keep in touch with them. Please do that. Also, I don't think I have any other Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. I do have open office hours that are posted both in the Fellows group on Facebook and in the IamAnArtist.net platform. It's a lively conversation every Wednesday morning, and I am learning so much. So you should really pop in, and we ask each other questions. We help each other with resources. This past Wednesday, I was driving through Vale Pass, so I wasn't much help, but the conversation was very, very lively, and there was a lot of resources that were exchanged and some problem solving going on. It was a really great conversation. I wish I would have recorded it because it was pretty fabulous. The conversation was about art consultants, but you never know what the conversation will be on a Wednesday morning. I just recommend, if you're looking for those, now that you're not in graduate school anymore, who do you have those conversations with? You can pop in on Wednesday mornings. But thank you again, Sant, so much for tonight. And we are definitely going to have you back. And I think that's kind of it, everybody. Have a great night.
Yeah, thank you, Andy, for inviting me. Great to see everyone. Thank you.
Andy, thank you so
Brava, son. It was fabulous.
It
Thank you so
was.
much.
much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, son.
Night.